Welcome back to Fast Market here on the Schwab Network. It's time for cash tags. For that, let's bring in our next guest. That's going to be Andy Swan. He's a co-founder of LikeFolio. Welcome back to the show, Andy.
Thank you. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you. Home Depot, it's been struggling. Not surprising, Andy. Consumers kind of maybe picking and choosing what they're spending on, inflationary pressures. But their last quarter, they saw a little bit of a bump into positive territory for comparable same-store sales. Is this just one of those stocks that you have to wait until the all clear is given for the economy, inflation goes away, interest rates come down, and you see a pickup in the housing market? Is that what everybody's kind of waiting for with a stock like this?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're kind of at a point where it looks like the stock is basically priced right. I think Wall Street has a pretty good grasp of what's going on at Home Depot. And what we're seeing at LikeFolio kind of supports the prevailing view, and that is that Home Depot has a major structural advantage over its competitors in that it really relies on the contractor business, the pro side of the business, in a much larger way than most of its competitors, especially Lowe's. Lowe's is 75% do-it-yourselfers, whereas Home Depot is only 50%. It's pretty much 50-50 between contractors and do-it-yourselfers, and the contractor side of the business looks pretty good, pretty stable at this point. Do-it-yourself has definitely fallen off due to the weak housing market. But the contractor side, if we look at the engagement with the Home Depot Pros app, we're seeing usage levels already in April that are higher than last year's peak, May and June seasonality levels. It tells us that the contractors are doing pretty well. They're going to Home Depot at an increasing rate. And so I think that's really given them a buttress against a declining overall housing market and kind of just this macro malaise that we're in. And if we look at it, Home Depot versus Lowe's, because both of these report this week, you can clearly see in web visits, both are down, but Home Depot's just down significantly less than Lowe's. Again, just kind of reinforcing that theory that the contractors are solid. It's the do-it-yourself that has fallen off. And I think it's the do-it-yourself, Tom, that's exactly what you're talking about. That's the side of the business that needs to see, interest rates start to decline, people start to move their homes again. A lot of people are locked into a 30-year mortgage under 3%. They're not moving anytime soon, no matter what the housing market does. So there's a lot that needs to thaw for the do-it-yourselfer to come back. But until then, Home Depot has a major structural advantage over its competitors, and I think they're going to continue to get the benefit of the doubt from Wall Street until that changes.
Andy, correct me. Tell me where I'm getting down the wrong path here. For me, Home Depot feels like a short-term story, long-term story. And in the short term, with interest rates here and slightly rising, they're projecting sales growth for 2025 to be plus 2.8%. They're expecting comp sales to be plus 1%, but earnings per share to be down 2%. So is this one of those stories where, it might be a little dicey right now, and they might underachieve right now, but if interest rates come down, there's a whole aspect that's going to open up for them, and things are going to get busier. So short term, It may not be the best place to hang out, but long term, it's always going to do well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And you never know what that what that turning point is. We saw that with, COVID and the lockdowns that ensued, and how just all of a sudden, when the rest of the economy was seemingly falling apart, the do-it-yourself crowd was looking around the house that they were forced to be in and said, hey, I need to make some adjustments. I need to make some changes. And all of a sudden, everybody was going to Home Depot and Lowe's. So you never know exactly when that, that spark will happen. But when it does, Home Depot is definitely in the driver's seat. We see it as best of breed in this industry. And I think there's always, we've got the macroeconomic conditions, we've got interest rates, we've also got tariffs, which impact their appliances business in a big way. So we have to see how much they're going to talk about, like Walmart, how much they're going to eat the tariffs as Trump put it. We just have to see, and I think that's the big question mark going into these earnings calls. It isn't really the health of the business that much. I think that both Lowe's and Home Depot are doing pretty well, but it's the outlook and how they see the macroeconomic environment unfolding. These are going to be two very big earnings reports, and especially earnings outlooks and conference calls for the market, I think, this week.
Yeah, and I think the comps are going to be maybe easier than what they were last year.
Yeah. Saw
some pullback as far as same-store sales. But when you compare these two and the foot traffic that they're seeing, maybe that what you guys are seeing, Home Depot is still head and shoulders above Lowe's at this point, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's it's really interesting to see their strategy really pay off. I think that Lowe's really positioned itself for the do-it-yourselfer. They made the stores much more friendly, to the average Joe and guys like me. But the contractors are where the business is built a lot of times, and that's certainly true now. And Home Depot just does a much better job of servicing those repeat, very active customers. And so that's paying off right now. I think that's going to be the difference between these two stories this week.
All right, Andy, real quick here, you got an earnings score for us on this one?
Neutral on Home Depot, but I think if we can get a lift out of Home Depot results, if they can put a positive story out there, I think then you might have an enticing trade to the short side on Lowe's. A sympathy bump with Home Depot. I think they're going to have a much tougher report and much tougher outlook.
All right, great stuff as always, Andy. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right, that's Andy Swan, co-founder of LikeFolio, breaking down the data for us in Home Depot. Kev, you look at the stock. You know what? Implied volatility levels, I think we've got that IV percentile rank that we usually talk about going into earnings. It's usually really elevated, but we had so much volatility over the last couple of months, it kind of skews it a little bit. The market's still pricing in just under a $14 move either way in the shares. How do you want to look at this one?
Yeah, you got to be careful with IV percentile right now just because of the 60 VIX we just had took all these IV levels up very high, so they seem cheap. Just make sure, remember, when in doubt, go 3 years out. Put a 3-year chart up and check that IV and make sure it's still at a good level. But Tom, my commitment to this trade is relatively passive. I looked at the expected move about